Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video, and today we're going to be talking about pillar 2, which is discussing strategic thinking and vision. If you have not already watched pillar 1, where we talked about energy and focus management, I do highly recommend that you go watch that video first, because those topics carry over to this video here and it goes on to the entire pillars as we go on in the future. So make sure that you go ahead and watch that video first before you watch this. So for those of you who have already watched pillar 1, I hope you found a lot of value from that video there. And so today we're going to be focusing on strategic thinking and vision, which is going to be another important piece in the Executive Elevation Engine workshop. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started, guys. So today, guys, we're going to be discussing a couple of things here. So the first thing that we're going to be talking about is the problem on why strategy fails in organizations. We will talk about why vision and strategy matters. We'll also talk about what is strategy and tactics. We'll talk about strategic thinking cycle. We'll talk about strategic thinking tools and frameworks that you can actually use in your organization. And lastly, we will talk about how we can apply these strategies and frameworks on a daily basis there. So starting off, guys, so we need to talk about the problem on why organizations are failing and why their strategy is failing. So first things first, guys, it's not about the poor strategy that is being put in place here. Strategy can be great with a lot of organizations. However, there is a lack of alignment on these issues here. So when we talk about alignment, this includes actually following up with your alignment, because a lot of the times there will be a lot of leaders or companies that will go through, create a strategy, and it just becomes a book on the shelf. And that's why about 45% of plans are never tracking execution, because again, they're just put away because there was a check on the box that needed to get done and it never gets looked back at. And it's very important that you actually do continuous feedback loops on your strategy to ensure that you are aligning to your top priorities, you're aligning to your vision, and that brings in the full circle moment for what your company is looking for. Now, there's also been some research done by Harvard Business Review that shows that leaders are spending up to 23 hours a week in meetings. Now, some meetings may be beneficial, but some are not beneficial. And what we talked about in pillar 1 being that you must block out your calendars to ensure that you are tracking your time and you're not using your time towards non-beneficial items. This can clear up a lot of that 23 hours on average that leaders are spending in meetings and allow them to actually put use into their strategic thinking cycles, that focus time, that flow state moment that they're looking for. And as you can see on the right side there's been a lot of different types of statistics that have come into place that you see that about 35% of strategy fails from alignment. You have 25% that fails from leadership buy-in. You have 20% that suffers from communication flaws. You have 15% of not being able to measure your strategy, not being able to measure your outcomes, and about 5% on miscellaneous or other types of issues that may be embedded in that organization. So you might ask, okay, Faraz, why does vision or strategy matter? Well, it matters because it's very important to understand your drive of an organization from the top all the way to the bottom. And what that does is that once you have the alignment in place, it can allow about 2.5 times higher return on your shareholder returns, which is very important because listen, if you have investors, if you have shareholders who are expecting you to perform at a level, it's very important because they're looking for an outcome. They're looking for a measurable return on time or capital that they have invested into you and your company. And once you do have that alignment in place, it also accelerates your decision making by 25% or even higher. And once we have that vision all in place and the strategy in place, your employees are more likely to work even harder, more efficiently. They have the understanding of why they're working towards something. You're just not giving them boring work. You're allowing them to see the impact that their work does in this organization, which is very important. You have to embed that into your employees as a leader. Because again, just because you're a leader does not mean you do all the work. Your people are the ones who are helping you accomplish the overall goal, and that's so much important for them to understand what they are working towards. So now that we understood why those matter, now we need to talk about the differences between strategy and tactics. So starting at the top level, you're always going to have your vision. And this is your North Star. This is you understanding what you are chasing after, what you are trying to accomplish at the task at hand, the overall company objectives. And this allows a guideline, a path that we can get to. Now, we can't run to the North Star immediately. We have to figure out, okay, what is the strategy and what are the tactics we can get and put in place to accomplish our vision. Now, strategy is what gives you direction. Strategy is embedding the vision and allowing you to combine those together, your strategy and your vision, to then shape out the outcome that you're looking for on how you can break down your vision into more smaller chunks that you can get after. And then that's what brings in tactics. These are your daily execution levers. This is where your team comes into play. This is where you can track your progress of getting to that North Star, which is the vision. And part of this cycle here, right, we call this the strategic thinking cycle. So this is actually a continuous loop. And we start off with the diagnose, which is the first one, right? This is where you are actually identifying any gaps that you may have in your performance, in your strategy, and or even your vision. And this is where you're looking at what is possible to do and what you need to work at. Then we move on in the loop to forecasting, looking at what the market is looking like. Because look, you may have a great idea, but do you know if the market will actually adapt to it? Will they actually find your vision to be revolutionary? You have to understand the forecast by actually doing some market analysis. And then from there, we move on to the explore part of the cycle. Now we're gonna be looking at what pathways that we can take and what are the risks that come along with the strategy that we're going to be embedding and we're gonna be chasing after. Again, strategy can change over time because as you're going to do your market analysis, you're going to look at with your customer feedback, you may have to change your strategy, but you must have a framework in place to be able to go through this loop. And lastly, you come up with the choose. This is where you're actually aligning your people, your team, your capital, which is your money, and the focus point, what you're going to be focusing at. Is this a single task? Is this a bunch of tasks? That can allow you to measure these over time. This cycle here continuously loops. That's not a one-time thing that you must keep doing. You have to constantly keep doing it because, again, no matter what industry you're in, it's ever changing about what is going on. There might be a new cycle of a new trend going on in the market that you have to adapt to. There might be a new risk in the market that you have to adapt to. So this cycle right here allows you and your teams to come together and figure out, okay, how can we strategically break it down into the 4 different components we can think about allowing us to continuously get better at what we're doing. And to follow up with that strategic thinking cycle, these are some tools and frameworks that can actually be put in place as you're going through that team structure of trying to figure out how we can execute strategy. So the first thing would be having a balanced scorecard. So now we're working from the top down. So we're trying to get our vision, but also have some metrics that we're chasing after to align with our vision. This is where the strategy part, it plays a big role in. Then we move on to the scenario planning, future proofing. So for example, in my industry of cybersecurity, the way that we plan for the future for our customers is to ensure that the architecture that we are building out for their technologies is thinking about all the possible threats, all the possible risks that they may have or they may encounter throughout the years. Now, we can't all be people that can predict the future, but we can do our best based off of industry best practices. We can look at what other industry competitors may have faced, and we can make our decisions to future-proof our decisions, allowing our customers to be that much more successful and that much more efficient in their day-to-day work. Then you have your OKRs. So this is where it's very important to understand your key metrics. So OKRs is objectives, keys, and results. So this is aligning the measurable outcomes based off of your tactics and your strategy. And this is where you're going to be able to look at your weekly, your monthly, your yearly measurable outcomes based off of your day-to-day tasks, your tactics that you had, aligning with your strategy. And lastly, it is the SWOT analysis. So the day-to-day work that your teams are doing, the work that you are doing as a leader, is that working? What are the possible risks that you're going to be seeing if you keep going down this path? What can you do better? Are you doing this at the best ability? Do you have the most strengthful strategy in place? So this framework here breaks it down level by level, allowing for your organization to have a framework in place that you can track not only at the bottom level, but at the top level as well. And again, aligning to the North Star, which is our vision that we want to ensure that we are accomplishing, because that's what we set out for. This is what we went out for to accomplish overall. And then you're gonna ask, okay, so knowing all these frameworks, the strategic thinking cycle, how can I apply this as a leader on a day-to-day basis? So first things first, ensuring that you understand the vision is very important, because that's what allows you to take the vision and embed that into your team as well. So defining your vision and you having a clear understanding what the vision is, and constantly understanding that this could be a changing vision, but overall you understand that the main important aspects of this vision need to be the standard across the entire organization. From there, you want to be aligning your capital and your talent with the North Star. So your teams need to be aligned with that vision. So if you have individuals, your high performing leaders that are in this space, you make them focus on that vision, the strategy part of it. You don't put them at the low levels, making them do the day-to-day tasks. You put them at the highest level to ensure how we can get this vision and what strategies we need to put in place to then drive that execution at the day-to-day basis. From there, you want to communicate your vision relentlessly, and I mean religiously, because when your team, the entire team, like what I said earlier, understands what they're working towards, it just makes them that much more motivated. I mean, the amount of times that I have seen the shift of my own team members when I give them the entire overall picture of why we are doing this work for this customer and what their role impacts and what they bring to the table and the value that they bring to the table. I mean, it's so much far greater than not telling them what they're doing or them expecting to figure out on their own. And lastly, you have to lead with momentum. So once you do have the vision, a high performing leader would not just be someone who sits back and relax and be like, okay, we have a vision set, I have my other leaders in place who can figure out the strategy. No, the goal of a high performing leader is to constantly move with an example, leader of the pack, to understand that everyone is understanding the strategy, understanding the vision, understanding the tactics, and constantly having a feedback loop on how we can get better, how we can get to our vision in a much more efficient way, in a much more cost-effective way. Because there's different ways to get to your vision. It just depends on how you're trying to get there. And so once we go ahead and add all this together, and as a recap, right? So we look at the vision, which is our North Star. Then we have to understand the strategy that goes into the North Star of, okay, we have an understanding, but we need to now put together a plan of what strategy, what type of focus we're gonna go with. And that allows us to have tactics to actually execute and deliver on a day-to-day basis. So with that being said, guys, we are complete with pillar 2 of the strategic thinking and vision. This workshop here has brought you value in terms of the blueprint of sustainable leadership. And if you did find this to be very useful, please go ahead and share this with your organizations and share this with your colleagues, because the goal of this is to make your organization that much better overall. And if you are looking for support in your company or in your business, go ahead and click down on the link down below. It takes you directly to my website. I do have 10 plus years of experience doing workshops and doing consulting for leadership, and I would be happy to get on a call with you and talk about how we can improve your organization. And so with that, I will catch you guys all on the next one of Pillar 3, where we're going to be talking about execution. And so with that being said, guys, I'll talk to you guys later. See you on the next one.